What's wrong with soul? Is this even a question? Like, do we even need to be having this conversation? Hang on. Just cut it. Everything is wrong with soul. We're done here. See you next time. Yeah, I know. You want me to do an actual video. All right, you got it. In all seriousness, though, Soul is a complete disaster and feels more like a failed experiment than it does an actually completed stand. And I think that anyone that's really played Soul at all probably already knows this. But in case for some reason you've not gotten Soul, which is probably a good call, or you're just unaware of the situation, I'm going to be talking about all the problems it has and why it's arguably one of the worst stands in the entire game, if not the worst stand. I don't know. I think it's up to interpretation. Whether it's the worst or not, I don't think it can be argued against that it's really bad when compared to just about anything decent. And just for the record, before some cheater comes into my comment section and says, Soul is good because of XYZ move stacking glitch, I've got news for you. Move stacking is cheating, and you'll get banned for it. So, if you think Soul is good because of move stacking, then congratulations, you're about to eat a fat ban if you get caught on ranked doing it. So how about, for the best of all of us, you stop cheating, stop coming to my comment section telling me that the stand would be better if I cheated, and acknowledge the fact that I will not be cheating in the video. We got that clear? All right, good. No cheaters, moving on. When it comes down to it, the biggest problem with Soul is that half of its moveset, or arguably more than half of its moveset, is barely functional. Or if it's not barely functional, then it has some sort of quirk or gimmick that makes it useless. If we want to kick things off, we can start by talking about the only good moves that Soul has access to. And these good moves are M1s and teleport. No, I'm not kidding. That's it. Those are the only moves that are good for Soul. Soul's M1s actually do a lot of damage. The full combo does like 50 something damage, which is pretty good. But just like other M1s, you've still got the problem of you're putting yourself at risk while trying to go for M1s. And if you start getting comboed, then, well, you're not gonna be able to do a whole lot, are you? And the teleport move is just the same as any other kind of teleport that time stop stands have. Soul may not have a time stop, but it does have a teleport. Teleport goes right to your cursor, is immediate, and doesn't have any end lag or startup. In general, all these teleports are really good. They do have their quirks and bugs, like falling through the map, but for the most part, those are the odd ends of the spectrum and don't happen most of the time, and so the teleport is pretty good. Now obviously, we're off to a pretty bad start when I've already finished talking about the good parts of a stand's moveset. Gives me flashbacks to Gold Experience. But once we start getting into the bad of Soul's moveset, you'll understand exactly why I said these are the only two good moves. And kicking things off with the first bad move, and it's Teleport Barrage. Teleport Barrage is the exact kind of thing that I'm talking about when I say failed experiment. Teleport Barrage is all kinds of jank. It's a complete disaster. This move functions sometimes, doesn't other times. Whether it works or not seems to be completely up to random chance. And if it doesn't work, then you're going to eat an incredibly hard punish because this move is laggy as hell. But before we talk about end lag, let's talk about how the move actually works. When you press E, after a short windup, it teleports you behind the opponent and deals 38 damage. Pretty standard stuff. Only problem is, this entire move is blockable. As I already said, it has some windup on it, and since it teleports you behind the opponent where they were, not where they're going, I would say a good 70% of the time, if you try to just use this move out in the open, it's not going to work. And admittedly, that's probably a good thing, because if it did work, then it would be busted. If you could just press E and instantly get 30-something damage for free, that would be obnoxious. But it does kind of call into question the whole game design philosophy of this stand, because as it stands, and no, the pun wasn't intended, Soul's teleport barrage can only go one of two ways. Either it's overpowered as hell and you can just get free 38 damage, or right now, it's complete garbage. The experiment can't succeed because as far as I can see at least, there's no way to have an in-between. Maybe it was a novel concept to have a teleport barrage, but actually in practice, this thing is a mess. Now obviously it should be noted that this move isn't completely worthless. In fact, it pairs quite well with the good M1s you have. It pairs even better since the final hit of the M1 barely sends you anywhere. I don't know if it's on purpose or not, but the final hit of your M1s that knocks back doesn't send you very far. And since the teleport barrage sends you behind the opponent, and the opponent's probably going to be looking at you while you're M1ing them, if you hit them with the final M1 and then use your teleport barrage, you'll teleport barrage to where they are going to land, and most of the time it'll work. I say most of the time because this isn't even remotely foolproof. This little tiny string of combo does a lot of damage. Only issue being, if the opponent turns their camera anywhere else but backwards, then you're going to teleport to where they are not, and then you're getting punished. What do I mean by that? If they point their camera away from you during M1s, and then you teleport barrage to them after hitting them with the knockback, they're just gonna fly out of range, and then you get punished. So, on paper, this looks good, and then in practice, once people figure this out, it's worthless again. All in all, teleport barrage is just kind of a nightmare. But don't worry, it only gets worse from here. Our next move, nuclear fusion, is a dumpster fire. I have no idea if this move was tested at all because I don't know the purpose of it. I have no idea. I don't know what it's supposed to do. Is this just supposed to be a raw damage tool? Because for that, it doesn't work a lot of the time. Is it supposed to be some sort of extender where if you hit someone into the wall with it, you can extend a combo? It's not that either. Is it a get off me tool? I guess. That's really the only thing I can come up with. But it has such a ridiculously long cooldown that I don't know. I don't know the point of this move. I don't get it. What is nuclear fusion? Well, it shoots out a ball of energy through the ground in front of you, and anyone caught in it is knocked back. And when I say knocked back, they're really knocked back. The move does an amount of damage. How much damage it actually does is up to the wind. I don't know, it's random. Sometimes you'll do 36 damage, sometimes you'll do 4, who knows? It just decides when it wants to do damage and when it doesn't. And if you're paying attention right now, you can see that on the AI bots that spawn in the lobby, if you use it against a wall, the AI just gets hit against the wall. Now, maybe that's all the testing they did with this move. Well, it doesn't do anything weird with the bots, so it must be fine. And of course, that's not how it works. Against real players, you don't just get stuck up against the wall. No, you get launched across the arena at Mach 10. You use the move, they hit the wall, and zoom, they're gone. Who knows where they went? This negates any lasting damage the move had and makes it impossible to get any sort of combo or anything off of it, which you probably shouldn't be able to get anyway, but even still, it's jarring to say the least when someone's constantly flying across the screen. And on the receiving end of it, it's even more of a nightmare as you're getting jerked and jagged and thrown around. Overall, nuclear fusion is a mess. Next up, and we're gonna talk about Soul's only block breaking move. That's of course Intangible Punch. An Intangible Punch makes 0 sense being on the R key. Now before I start talking about this next part, don't get me wrong here. I think that experimenting with the game design and making new, different stands with different movesets that don't just all mimic each other isn't necessarily a bad thing. So in the sense of putting Intangible Punch on R where you would normally have just a standard heavy punch, I don't necessarily think that would be such a bad thing if it wasn't implemented so horribly with the rest of the stand. Moving past that, and you can see exactly why I'm talking about this. They put Intangible Punch on the R key, where there would normally be a standard low windup heavy punch that breaks block. Instead, they took Star Platinum Requiem's Starbreaker and then decided to replace your heavy punch with it. On Star Platinum Requiem, you basically have an identical move, albeit I think it does more damage. That move is on H, I believe, and you still have a heavy punch. On here, no heavy punch, here's your Starbreaker. I don't know if I mentioned it already, but this is Soul's only reliable block break. Look how long it takes to charge up this punch. Who is ever going to get their block broken by this? Seriously, this is ridiculous. It does a lot of damage, over 58, I think, but that doesn't mean anything because you're never gonna land the move. You start charging it, and someone's just going to dash and then run the other direction. No way you're catching that. It's just not happening. The only people being caught by this are stupid people who walk directly into it even though they see it being charged. I'm gonna get into it later, but one of the biggest problems with Soul is because of this move. You can literally, and I mean literally, stand still and block and react to anything that they would do to block break you and punish it. Anything, which makes the stand all but completely useless. And there are other stands in the game that are kind of similar to this, but in this case, your normals aren't even good enough to make up for the fact that your block break is awful. But I'm getting ahead of myself, that's for later. Right now, I don't think I have too much else to say about Intangible Punch, other than it sucks. The last move in Soul's kit is, of course, Soul Star, one of the jankiest moves in the game. Soul Star, I think, is also a block break. I've definitely broken people's blocks with it, but I could not tell you if it's actually a block break or not, because I've also had people tank through it. So I don't know if it's inconsistency, but it is what it is. Regardless of that, Soul Star, once again, on paper, looks like a pretty good move. It has a good chunk of windup, and then you shoot yourself in a star pattern, and anyone stuck in that star pattern is taking a bunch of damage. At the end of it, it doesn't have very much knockback, so a lot of the time, if you land it, you can combo extend off of it. If you land Soul Star, your punches, and your barrage, it does around 160 or so damage, which all things considered is pretty good. The only problem is, well, good luck landing it. Landing this move is just as much of a nightmare as Intangible Punch. Honestly, it's kind of just Intangible Punch, but worse. Once again, this move has an incredibly obvious wind-up noise and visual effect. So if you don't see this move coming and avoid it, I don't know what you're doing. You probably have some sort of brain damage. Not only that, but the hitbox on the move is just, it doesn't make sense. The best way I can explain it is the hitbox is not a star, it's a circle. And you'd think with a move that has this much windup that the hitbox would be really large since it's so hard to actually hit someone with it. But no, it's not. You can have someone that's quite literally standing in the effects of the move and not taking damage. Why? Your guess is as good as mine, I don't know. Problems with the move don't totally stop there though. There is one other thing to note, which I don't know is an exclusive problem to me or not, but there are a lot of instances where I would choose to use the move and I would click the button and it would go on cooldown and nothing would happen. I have absolutely no idea what caused this. To this day, I really don't know. And it would be really jarring when I would go to use Soul Star and nothing happened. I could not recreate it on purpose, so I don't know why it happens, but all I know is hitting the key to use a move and having it eat your cooldown and do nothing, yeah, not great. That's probably all I've got for Soul Star, and that's the last move that Soul has access to. So we're gonna just start talking about why Soul is such a dumpster fire if you haven't caught on already. I've already said it, and I'm sure I'll say it again, but the stand just doesn't feel finished. All things considered, it doesn't have that many moves. And to compound that fact, it doesn't have any stand-off moves at all. I've commented on this a few times before, but it's always kind of jarring when some stands have standoff moves and some don't. It feels like a concept that they were going to implement and then we're just kind of like, this is a lot of work and the game's gotta come out in August and we're about to hit our deadline, so finish and dump it out. And I think that's probably exactly what happened here. Soul has barely any moves, and the moves it does have are barely functional. At this point in the video, I'll be playing some of the background of the exact showcase of the problem I was talking about, where the opponent can literally just stand still and hold block, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing. That's the problem with Soul. You just have to stand there. If you try to use Intangible Punch or Soul Star, they just dash backwards and react to it. So you're kind of just stuck there staring at them and block, unable to do, well, anything. The whole experience is just miserable and unfun to play with. Using Soul was probably some of the least fun I've had in AUT maybe ever. It's absolutely doing its best to rival my first impressions with this game. which, in case you haven't seen that video, were a nightmare. I think the thing that kind of irks me about Soul at the end of the day is it isn't one of those stands like Planet Shaper that's just outwardly unfinished. Planet Shaper doesn't work. A lot of its moves are completely non-functional, and honestly, I think that's pretty forgivable because it's just not done. I don't know why they left it obtainable in the game since it's not done, but it's pretty clear that the stand isn't finished. So there will probably not be a what's wrong with Planet Shaper because everyone knows that the stand actually just straight up isn't finished. But Soul, from the looks of it, on the outside at least, seems like a finished stand. Like they were done with it. That's it. I don't know if that is it, or maybe I'm just wrong and they already said they're gonna do something about it. But from my perspective, it seems like a finished stand. All of its moves function, albeit not very well. And there's a quest to get it, so I don't know, man. It's bad. Soul is bad. Don't use Soul. That's gonna be it for today's video though. I don't need to talk about this anymore. This probably went on longer than it had to anyway, because you guys already know Soul doesn't work. Everyone does. The only people using Soul are cheaters. I got plenty of people telling me that Soul was good and then sent me clips of move stacking. So I know that the only people playing Soul are cheaters. Anyways, I'm done. If you enjoyed the video, you can leave a like, subscribe. If you didn't, don't do those things. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.